My first experience there was they expected me to already know what the Dogface Soldier song was, right? I didn't know it
Huh.
at all. So I'm just like just moving my mouth, and then my not my platoon sergeant, but my section sergeant, my first line, saw me just moving my mouth instead of actually saying it. Oh man, I got tore up during PT after that.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Episode 5, Original Veterans. How's everybody doing? It's your host, Harrison, with our co host.
Hey, Jackson out here, loving it. Love your hat and your hoodie.
There we go. I had to represent 10th Mountain because guess what today is all about? First duty stations.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm excited to talk about as well, man. I think that's probably one of the things that every soldier, sailor, airman knows how excited they were when they found out where they were going.
Yeah, just imagine getting the news, finding out where you're going to go because what's the first thing you did? You start researching about that place, right? How's the
Yeah.
weather?
Yeah, I know, right? So, if you guys missed out on our last episode, okay, here's a little clip.
And I see them. We say hi once in a while, but that I think that's something unique to the military service that most people, you might have friends from high school or, school, but it's nothing like going through boot camp in your military service with those people, and
Hmm.
I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I thank social media for connecting with me with some of the people that I serve with. Actually, a majority of them, I try to stay connected with them via social media because it genuinely I care for each and every one of the people that I've served with because every single one of them made an impact in my life and in my career. We have battle buddies, okay? Our battle buddies, we have to look out for one another. Why do we have to travel in battle buddy teams? Is because if one person does bad, well, the battle buddy was supposed to be there to be their moral compass and hey, slap him in the head like, hey, this is not the right thing to do. So everybody in your class was, or everybody in your company is your battle buddy. So if you're not looking out for him, then why do we even have, I understand the concept, but I hated mass punishment.
Yeah, and that's how they operate.
All right. Well, welcome back. Hopefully that recapped enough for you. There's plenty of previous episodes where we touched on the beginning of our journey here from Jackson and I growing up and our as a youth and our progression through the military up until this point, first duty stations. And before we go any forward, I definitely want to touch on our mission, Original Veterans. And the mission is to engage with our veteran community by creating an open outlet for discussion, sharing experiences and fellowship, strengthening the bonds that enhance mental health and overall well-being. So I think that's important, Jackson. I know you agree that what we're doing, but just you and I talking through these memories and experiences is helpful for us.
Yeah, I think it really helps. And I think that's one message that we want to get to our teammates out there that's watching us is that your stories matter. Okay. And we're trying to engage our veteran community to tell their story, to share their experience. Because not a lot of us, once we put down the uniform, we don't get that opportunity or outlet to just talk to somebody about our experiences in the military.
Yeah, and it could be anything, right? And some people are different. They don't like to talk. Maybe they just like to listen. Some people don't wear a certain duty station related clothing. I personally, I love my 10th Mountain hat. My primary hat that I wear out in public, but I don't wear any other type of clothing. It's just a personal. I feel the pride in my unit and spending time there and experiencing what I did with the 10th Mountain. So some people kind of, I don't know what it is. It may take them some years to feel comfortable, or they don't want to be that They don't want to feel like the corny old man, like the grandfather wearing their hat, when they're 70s. It did take me some time, to be honest. It took me maybe 10 years before I bought this hat, 15 years before I actually started wearing 10th Mountain related stuff. So everyone's
Yeah.
different.
Well, one thing I'm wearing today is one of the official
Yeah,
shirts from original veterans. And if you guys like this,
there you
airborne all the
go.
way, right? All
And
okay.
that's the World War II airborne design there. So it's in black and white with some color, but definitely a tribute to World War II and the airborne. And that's what I like about the original veterans is kind of the name. We kind of pay respect to the heritage of the military, of course, going back to many great wars. And you'll see that in the designs, different conflicts, different units. So a lot of history.
Yeah, make sure you check out the link below. Okay. And, it's not to support not just our channel and everything, but you're supporting a cause and our mission statement. Okay. For us, for me and Matt here, we're doing this as often as we can to tell our story. I have my career in life, and so does Matt, and we are passionate about this, and we always find time to schedule this kind of stuff. But you are supporting us in our journey into a bigger and better operation once we get off on our feet.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a long road, right? We just started this channel. We just try and grow the brand, and every purchase goes towards helping a veteran, providing food or other necessities for veterans that may be homeless or just community events for veterans and family. So that's the goal, and that's why we're growing this channel. And with your support through theoriginalveterans.com or just by watching our channel, it's going to help out. So it's a long road. It's not going to be an
Yeah,
overnight thing.
yeah. And I'm glad that both of us are wearing something that's really near and dear to our heart. So let's get to it, man. I mean, it looks like you are wearing a Climb to Glory hat. Um, I guess that was your first duty station.
Yeah, Fort Drum, New York. And I think if you're in the Army, you might have heard of it. You might have heard of the weather. It does get cold. It's in the middle of nowhere, like many Army duty stations. Most of them are kind of in the middle of the worst place, right? The Army kind of has the worst stations you could think of. The Air Force and Navy has much better stations, right? Probably near the coast or better major cities. That's the benefit of those armed services, the Marines, right? They got a nice place in San Diego and other coastal towns. So the Army kind of gets the short end of the stick. So Fort Drum was near Syracuse, hour north of Syracuse, and about an hour away from the Canadian border. So it does get very cold. How about you, Jackson? What was your first duty station?
So, right after, I would say about a week before before graduation from OSET, I got news that I was going to Fort Stewart, Georgia. And I think out of about 50 of us that was graduating in our platoon, more than half of us were all heading there at the same time. Okay. You got to understand the timeline is that this is right after the invasion of Iraq. So they were coming back from the deployment and a lot of them were getting out. So, of course, the Army needs more soldiers coming in, right? So that's why a lot of us got state were going to Fort Stewart, Georgia. So Fort Stewart is southeast Georgia. I would say about 45 minutes west of Savannah. Hour and a half south, I mean, north of Florida. And then, yeah, it's like literally right kind of near the coastal town.
Wow. And what year was that when you arrived?
So I actually arrived on my birthday. So I got there. My report date was May 5th, 2004. And I think that was it was a weird experience. I think this is one thing that a lot of soldiers do when they first get to your first duty station. All we have is two bags, two duffel bags, and maybe a personal luggage full of things. That's all we have. We get off the plane. They have in processing already take us from the Savannah airport or airport that's closest and bus us to what we have to do, what we talked about in episode 2. I think it was in processing again, right?
Yeah, in processing.
So I guess, you got to understand is that everywhere that you go in the military, there's always an in process onboarding period. It usually lasts a whole week. And but it is probably less stressful than you would experience at basic training, right? So, I guess, when we first got there, I got there literally on my birthday, and they gave us a schedule. It wasn't like we had to get up to do PT or anything. We did have first formation, and we were told like, hey, our next hard time is 8:30 in front of the in processing. We're going to march to the in processing building, and that's where it starts. But you got to think about it. We already went through this whole process to in process into the Army when you first come into basic training. Now you're in processing into a unit, right? So I don't know if it was for you, if you remember this or whatnot. You get orders, right? You're saying you're supposed to report on this day and whatnot. And it doesn't have anything else. It doesn't say where you're going to be stationed, or, I mean, what unit you're going to be in, or what brigade or whatnot when you first initially get your orders. When you get there and you start in processing, that's where the in processing, okay, how many, 19 kilos we need, how many 11 Bravos we need, how many 25 uniforms we need for each brigade, and you start splitting it out like that, right? So usually on day 3, that's where you get your official orders of what unit you're going to be down to the platoon, down to the company of where you're going to be stationed at or assigned to, right? Because you got to remember, this is a huge post.
A lot of people.
A lot of people. You got to think of it. This whole post has maybe, I don't know, this is just an estimate, maybe like 35,000 troops, right? You got to understand that's a lot of people to maintain. Every week, there's X amount of number of soldiers getting out of the military and X amount of number of replacements coming in. So it has to balance out, right? And that's a lot
Yeah.
of moving pieces for a whole post.
It's really a
Right.
little city, right? A little town.
Oh, yeah. I was actually amazed. I was like, wow, okay, they got their own Burger King. They
Yeah, they
got,
got, of course, their own police, right? Military police. They
yep,
got fire departments. They got
yep,
hospitals. It
yep,
is a little town inside the walls of an army base. Everything is there, right? Post office. You don't need to leave whatsoever. They got a PX. They got movie theater. They have everything you could imagine now. Of course, you do want to leave, right? You don't want to stay there. You want to venture outside the walls of the base and, be a civilian once in a while. But yeah, in processing, like you mentioned, paperwork, briefings, your unit. One thing I want to mention is the awkward feeling of being the new guy, right? Being new
yeah,
boots because you're
yep,
young, right? This is your first duty station. So you're young, you might have one stripe or it might be a PFC or a specialist coming in, but you're still new, you don't know what you're doing, and you're reporting in and getting adjusted to the culture of that base, right? And trying your best not to make a mistake, right? Because
yep, yep,
you're used to the drill sergeants and everything. You're probably uniform is probably pressed and crispy and squared away. And there's probably people who've been there for years looking at you like, new boots. We got another one,
yeah,
So there's a
yeah,
transition period where you got to meet your first line leader and your command staff, right? So
yeah.
an adjustment.
I remember in processing was 5 days. It was like I got my report day was on a Sunday, which is May 5th, and then um, I think it was a Sunday, and then the next day we had started in process into start day 1 in processing and day
Mhm.
2, day 3. So every day was already scheduled, right? The one thing that you don't have to do again is update your immunizations, right? You don't have to get shots again or anything, but you do have to get your hearing done. You have to get your dental looked at again. They got to make sure that, you have your dog tags, your ID card. If you are married, they want to make sure that you have your marriage certificate and all of this. You got to remember is that from our time when we first came in is that there was not too much digital, right? Everything we had to carry by hand, especially like our medical documents and orders and stuff like that. We had to carry literally
Yeah,
a
don't
manila
lose it.
envelope. Yeah, we had a lot of documents that we had to carry around during those times. And I wouldn't say it was hard because there was no drill sergeants there to like,
Yeah,
all right, you know, what are you doing? Why aren't you,
you're on your
where's
own.
your battle buddy? Yeah. Like literally you have no battle buddy, right? You're by yourself. So, that was a couple of things that I noticed was that, hey, I was completely on my own for that time. Yes, we had a NCOIC that, took everybody to go to their, in processing schedule. That's about it. But they just tell us like, hey, our next hard time is 1700 for final formation or 0630 for reveille, right? So things like that. We didn't have to get woken up by drill sergeants yelling in our faces and stuff, right?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because depending on if you're married or not, right, you get assigned to the barracks, or you have to, if you're married, there's a process to get your housing,
Mm-hmm.
and there may or may not be a house on the barracks or a house on the base for you. You may need to find a rental property outside of the post. And if you're not married, they'll give you an assignment to a room. And if you're enlisted, you're going to share with. And for first duty station, this is probably you're not an NCO, so you're going to be bunking up with another team member, E4 and below. But at least in Fort Drum, non-married sergeants and above, they have their own room within the barracks.
Yeah, for us it didn't matter. It was they had E5s bunking with another E5, so it was rank like, right? So it was, yeah. I mean, it was tight quarters.
Yeah, those are small rooms.
Yeah, it was very small rooms. I remember
And
that.
a shared bath. Was your guys' bath shared with
Yeah,
the room
yeah.
next door?
And this photo is gonna show you. I'll show you how
Oh, I
tight
got the
quarters
photos.
they
Wow.
are.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. you know I think that experience itself was pretty humbling because you go from literally living in a bay setting with 20 other dudes, right? And now it's just you and a roomie. You get assigned, like I came in as a single soldier. When I first came in, I wasn't married or anything, so they assigned me a room, and it was my first experience having a roommate and everything. So, but not my first experience in, like, in the army with bunking with somebody or whatever. But I think that was probably an experience of trying to not size up them or anything, but it's just trying to get to know them, trying to break the ice, because hey, we have no idea who you are or what you do, where you're from.
Hopefully you got a good
So
roommate too.
yeah. It's not like they're gonna beat you up or anything, but you do want to get along with people that you're gonna be bunking with, right?
Yeah, and also hopefully you get a roommate that's squared away because they do
And clean.
inspections on the barracks for sure. I don't think it's as serious as basic training where they're looking for your corners and your bed folded a certain
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
But they are looking for cleanliness and no sloppy joes. So it depends on your unit, though. Every unit is different, right? Some units are more squared away than others. As you join the military, you'll hear certain units do things differently. It's just a culture. And I don't know about you, Jackson, if the barracks, at least in Fort Drum and where I was at, DSTB, the men were on like floors 2 and 3, and they had females on the first floor. So they were separated by floor. But I don't know if in your unit, do they have.
No, so when I first got there, it was a 3 floors as well, right? And you have a roommate, and it's only covered by 2 wall lockers. That was the split right there. So
They
you
had a
had one
split like
side,
that?
yeah, with wall lockers. That's it.
Okay.
And you had left side or right side and one shared bathroom and whatnot. But how you gotta remember the time that we came in is that um, uh, there was no uh, females in infantry or armor battalions. There
So
wasn't
even
any.
your barracks was
All males. So
oh,
they
okay.
separated by company, and then a whole quad would be a whole battalion, right? So
Interesting.
we got put in one, and our whole company was all on one building, and it was kind of close. It was really close to the company headquarters. Literally, you could just get up and walk
Just
down
walk
to
over.
the company headquarters and not worry about, where the heck am I? But it was yeah, it wasn't separated like that. So like another battalion would be across the way, or and all this stuff. So, but for us, man, I didn't see no females at all, at all.
And that must just be a combat arms type environment where it's designed that way, right? I don't know if you had like admin or other non-combat MOSs, attached, they're doing different work, sharing the barracks, but it sounds like they may have been in a separate barracks entirely.
So like we'll have 42 alphas, the S1s,
Mm.
and we'll have the support units like the fuelers and all of the stuff. When I first got there, there was no, I'm telling you, in that infantry and armor battalions, there was no females. In our medics, no females. In our commo shop, no females. Never. So it was very, very segregated when I first came in, like that, by gender and everything. So it was uh like thought it was norm because I went through basic training. We never saw a female throughout our basic training, and then when I got there, never saw female soldiers in or around the battalion or brigade areas because um, uh, our brigade was a armored combat brigade.
Hmm. That's
So,
good to know if you're in the military now or thinking about it, what to expect, right? Maybe things have changed, but at
oh
least,
yeah, I think things has changed a lot.
yeah, I
So,
think so. Yeah.
it's not like that anymore. You do have actually 100% of all MOSs in the Army is open to women. So if they make the standard, I mean, they'll be allowed to do it. So
Yeah.
that was the experience that I had initially. I guess, can you tell me, I guess, how was your first, experience in the barracks?
Yeah, it's hard to remember. It's been so long, but I was in the barracks. Thankfully, my first our shared situation, we didn't have wall lockers in the middle. We had two like full size beds side by side and an opening in the middle, and like the wall locker was kind of next to your bed on the wall. So you had, when there was nothing in between the beds, right? Like there was a walkway, but
So you could literally see
you
your
could see them.
your
Yeah. It was like a little apartment. It was very small. I don't recall the measurements, maybe 8 feet, maybe 10 feet by 12 feet type. I mean,
yeah, it was small. Yeah, enough
felt like
for
a
like
little gel.
a twin bed. Wait,
Yeah.
not a
Two
twin.
twin beds with,
Yeah.
you each get one wall locker and like one dresser. And hopefully somebody bought a TV. And back then, they didn't have these flat TVs like we got now, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
were
yeah,
flat,
yeah.
but they were heavy.
Yeah,
And if you
I
got,
remember that.
you bought one of these TVs going up the stairs and you saw your sergeant and, oh, there you go, private, got big money, you know. You got a little 32-inch flat screen, man. These things are heavy. Uh, but yeah, that was
Yeah.
my experience. I had a good roommate, and
Yeah.
the barracks can be rowdy, especially when you're young and you're new, you're meeting people. Friday night, Saturday night, a lot of people don't go out. They stay in the barracks and they play cards and they shoot dice and they drink and they listen to music. It's like a little party in the
It
barracks.
is. I would say that it was probably a big culture shock of like, wow, okay, what's being looking at it back at it now, you think of like, man, nothing wrong with fat boys or anything, but it was literally a frat party almost every weekend. Because why? Hardly any of us had cars, right?
That's true.
Why did we not have cars? Is because we already knew we were getting deployed. When I first got there, they already knew like, hey, yeah, we're about to leave again, And even though they had just came back from a deployment, they already knew that they were going back.
Mhm.
Anybody that's coming in, they're gonna let you know, like, hey, don't even waste your money on a new car or anything else.
But let's
And
not
that's
talk
what we did.
the bad auto loans that are waiting for you outside the
But
barracks and
yeah,
dealerships. They're
yeah.
preying on young privates to go get that new Dodge Charger at 25% interest rate.
And it's crazy is that I think during the late 90s, early 2000s, that was very prevalent. And that's where I believe that's where a lot of those used car salesmen target soldiers a lot is because of those,
Yeah.
you know, they know that they're going to spend their money, right?
Somebody
So I
was.
guess, no, I mean, I guess in the barracks and everything, even though how tight quartered it was, do you think that it was enough for you
Yeah,
at that time?
you don't even think about it. And before we go forward, I want to give the audience an opportunity to comment their experience, right? Their first duty station and the I want to hear from the Air Force and the Navy and the Marines and other, because I've heard stories of the Air Force base and the barracks being much better
Well,
standards. So
they call it dormitories.
dormitory, yeah, not barracks. So Jackson and I, in what, Fort Stewart and Fort Drum, these are um all older bases, right? The
Yes, they
barracks are
are.
old, and there's bad stories of the drinking water was don't drink it. But we didn't find out till later, but some buildings had asbestos from years from previous, right? They had to
Yeah.
condemn it.
Yeah.
So some soldiers had to live through those toxic environments depending on where you're at. So if you have those
And you,
stories, drop a
yeah,
comment.
yeah. And you got to remember is that, uh, during the time that when we joined, we didn't have the luxury of getting bottled water. Bottled water was like a
No,
luxury.
we grew up on the water fountain.
Yeah. That's how I drank water for so long out the barracks was, just get a cup and just, whatever. It tastes kind of
Yeah.
funny, but
And it makes me feel so old. And mind
actually,
you, I'm 40, so yeah, I get that I'm getting old. I'm like unk status or
yeah.
OG status, and we could have some younger viewers, and they're trying to understand what we're talking about. But at the time, this was just normal, but it was fun. It was cramped, but the barracks was just a place to sleep, shower, and you might not be in your room all the time. You might be at your buddies down the hall. But for me personally, and I want to ask you, I was never like an MWR type person to go hang out at the MWR. Like the Army base had these facilities, right? I never really did that. How about you?
No, so ours was not very well advertised. I didn't even know what an MWR was until
It wasn't much.
until I deployed, right? I was like,
Yeah.
this is actually back home too. I was like, I didn't even know. So
You
it
didn't
was
miss
not
anything.
advertised when I
There's like a
first got
ping pong
there.
table and a popcorn machine.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I've once I found out that it was available to us, I took advantage of it. But my first year there, I did not take advantage of MWR, any of those type of activities that was available at the time, but I didn't even know because we were always training. But I do want to pose a question to the viewers back to the barracks thing. If you were stationed at Fort Stewart, okay, And even now, does the water still taste like the paper mill? I want to, I want to know. Drop a comment because that's one thing that a lot of people that's been in the South, they know that there's a lot of paper mills there. And in the morning and in summertime, you can smell it from far away and it got into the water. Like it tasted like what it smelled. Oh, it is a smell that I'll probably never forget and a taste that I'll never forget. And I want to
Yeah.
hear from the viewers to see if it's still like that right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we want these videos to be interactive, right? It's not just you and me talking. We want other people to engage and drop their comments and tell us your experience, right? Because we do want to talk about it. And we plan on having guests in the future discuss different topics and episodes. And we want to hear from the viewers anything they want to include.
Yeah. Now, back to it was, I think when I first got to my room and everything, I didn't, I cleaned up and everything. I put all my stuff away and put my locker in there and everything. But the next morning, I got a room inspection. I didn't know that they inspected every morning my personal room. So it was a I wouldn't say a rude awakening, but it was like, wow, okay, this is still going on, even though I'm out of basic training in AIT or OSET or whatever. I'm still being inspected of my room, right? Did you experience that as well?
Yeah, you do get the inspections. And, when you're new, you don't know anybody yet. But hopefully you're squared away and you meet the right people and you'll get a heads up notice. By the way, Friday there's going to be an inspection. So as you meet people, you'll get tuned into what's going to happen so you could plan accordingly. All right, and as time goes on and you're more familiar with your first line leader, they'll let certain things slide, but at first you don't know anybody. So they're going to call you out and look for stuff, and they will look around and question why you have certain bottles of shampoo or soap. It's kind of funny, right?
Yeah,
But
it
they're
is.
going to mess with the new guy.
Yeah. And for us, we had barracks inspections every morning. It was so our first line supervisor would come in every morning because the platoon sergeant and first sergeant would do random ones throughout the week. It was just something that we always had to prepare for,
Keep you
right?
on your toes. And,
Yep, yep.
let's continue with that because I think that kind of brings us to the work life experience, right? You're talking about the morning inspections. I do want to touch on what is it like? What does a regular day of work feel like on the barracks, right? So you're new to your duty station. You're assigned to your unit. You do need to show up in formation at a certain place and a certain time. At least my experience was you had to be there because if you slept in and you were not in formation, the sergeant or your line leader would go to your room and rip you out of bed.
Yeah,
And they weren't playing around.
yeah, yeah. So I would say reporting to work was probably, in Fort Stewart, it's really uh very I wouldn't say routine, but it's monotonous every single day. Okay. Even though we have formation first thing at 0630, I was just expected to be there by 6 so we can have accountability and everything 6:15 in order to be ready by 6:30 for reveille. So how Fort Stewart works is that every day at 6:30, no matter what, even on the weekends, if you're outside at 6:30 and you get caught on there, you're expected to get out of your car and salute the flag, right? We have to sing the Dog Face Soldier song every morning. So my first experience there was they expected me to already know what the Dogface Soldier song was, right? I didn't know it at all. So I'm just like just moving my mouth, and then my platoon sergeant, but my section sergeant, my first line, saw me just moving my mouth instead of actually saying it. Man, I got tore up during PT after that. So
Yeah.
it is a tradition for Fort Stewart Third ID to sing the Dogface Soldier song every morning.
Yeah, that's good to hear because every unit is different. I don't recall being at Fort Drum having to recite a certain song during Reveille, but I do remember if you're driving, you're supposed to pull over and get out the
Yeah.
car.
Yep.
And it's funny because like you could be driving and you may see cars stop and people stop and you forget
Yeah.
and you keep driving and it's like, I hope no one caught you. Cause like, wait,
Yeah.
is that retreat? Is that Reveille? And you're just like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
just keep going, keep going.
Yeah. Like you kind of turn up you're like,
Turn up the music.
I get paranoid, especially driving. You train your body is like, oh shoot, I got to check the time, and then I'm turning down the volume, lowered in the window because you don't want to be caught by either at the time it was the MPs or the sergeant major that's running around and everything. They see you driving and they see that you're a soldier. Oh man, you're getting tore up,
Yeah.
right? So I think that was my rude awakening of that is learning my Dogface Soldier song and just getting used to doing this every single day, 5 days a week, just doing physical training with the team every morning. And it was different from basic training. I don't know if you experienced that yourself, but it was more intense than basic training in AIT.
Yeah, I think you and I both, especially when we were in during that time of war, the discipline, right? The emphasis for discipline was very high at the time. And you and I were in well-known units with great heritage and history. So me being at Fort Drum, especially being part of the division, right? I was in the division, DSTV, which was Division Special Troops Battalion. So we were pretty much around upper leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
in communications, that's was our job. We're communications, but they're still expecting us to be squared away, high speed soldiers. So they didn't play any games about, doing the right thing at the right time and respecting your leaders and not being a shitbag because this was a time of war and they really were wanting their soldiers to represent, excellence. And you're right. If you got caught making a mistake, they would take the necessary steps to punish you or write you up or smoke you or do something
Yeah.
because we're going to deploy. And to kind of circle back on what you mentioned, when I got to Fort Drum, I think it was around November of 2005, if I
So
recall.
it's cold up there already, huh?
It was already cold. And one of my first meetings with my first sergeant, which I was kind of worried because they just told me, hey, Private Orr, first sergeant wants to see you. I'm thinking, I already messed up. Like, I'm new. Why does first sergeant want to see me, right? Just like by myself. So my sergeant, my line leader took me up there and she was just like, hey, we're going to deploy to Afghanistan. I want to make sure you're ready because you're new. You just got here. We're deploying in January. And this was November. So like 2 months.
Dang.
I got there right in time. And I told her, yeah, this is what I want. This is why I joined the army because I do want to deploy. I want to be a combat soldier, not a I don't want to stay back. I want to go overseas. And sure enough, yeah, I think come February, I was already in Afghanistan. So I was new to my unit station, maybe 3 months, and then I shipped off.
Yeah, that is kind of that is actually crazy, but not uncommon because, during that time, they needed all the soldiers they can and then get them out there to the fight because we were either in Afghanistan or in Iraq. And that's a lot of soldiers that need to be out there all times,
Back to back.
even though like I think the thing that a lot of us have to remember is like, depending on where you're at and where you're stationed and all that, mostly every single army unit kind of aligns with the same timeline, right? So of course we always have, PT in the morning, and then, depending on the day of the week and stuff like that, after PT, you go back, shower, go to the chow hall, can grab something to eat real quick, and then head, if it's Monday, you have motor pool Monday, right?
Yeah.
And you just make sure your vehicle or whatever equipment that you're assigned is ready to go to the next event. So the next event that when I first got there, literally a week and a half, we were heading out to gunnery to qualify as a tank crew, and so that's all I did for the next week and a half was making sure our vehicle, our tank was properly maintained and ready to go. And at the same time, at the end of the day, I would practice with my crew of drills so that we can qualify as a whole tank crew. Because of the progression as a tank crew, you would qualify as a tank crew, then you're certified, then you can move on to other training exercises as a whole team, like JRTC or NTC or something like that, right? So, that was a thing that we had to do is, we have our tasks that we needed to complete throughout the day. And
Yeah.
that's what we did.
And you're probably familiar, and probably most military units, no matter what branch, is you're not working a standard 8 to 5 schedule. Your your formation might be 6:30, and then you have PT, right? And then after PT, you're probably given an hour, hour and a half to shower and eat. So you probably got to actually show up to work, maybe 8:30, something like that. 8:39 is
9 o'clock, yeah.
be at your unit, and then you start working. So you've already had reveille, you've already had PT, showered and eat, changed, and you had to be somewhere else, another formation to report to work. And then you get dispatched to your unit where your sergeant and staff sergeant give you the orders for the day. Hey, you guys go do this, you do that, and then you might have lunch, an hour lunch, right? Chow hall, or go back to your room and warm up a hot pocket.
I took a nap, man. I was tired by lunch. I went to my room, took a nap, and yeah, and then I go back.
Yeah, and then you went back to work, and if you're lucky, you got off at 5. But depending on who your
Sometimes,
first
yeah.
sergeant was, they might keep you there till 6 or
Yeah,
7,
yeah.
because in my experience, the first sergeant had to wait for the commander to say, yeah, let them go. Or first sergeant had other plans. Hey, we need to do this. We're not going to leave until this gets done. And maybe it has nothing to do with you, but you had to sit around and wait. And for somebody to do something and to have final formation at 6:37,
Yeah.
then you could
And
go
I
home.
think that was probably, for me, us being single soldiers and everything, we're like, hey, whatever, hey. Even though, I think a lot of when we were prepping to go to a major exercise like JRTC or something like that, man, we would have late nights and just getting the tanks ready and getting all of our gear ready and all that stuff. And it'll be 5 o'clock, and they'll say, "Hey, stop what you're doing. Let's go to the chow hall. We'll go eat real quick. Come back, and then doing it all. We're still waiting for the call to start packing up and going back. But sometimes, well, for like a good couple weeks, we'll probably be at the company area until like 8, 9 o'clock at night. You know?
That's a good point, because when we think about the day-to-day job in the military, you're going to have good days where you might get off early, or maybe it just be 5 o'clock. Hopefully, just by 5, I could get let go. But there's going to be times where you go to the range and you have to clean your weapon and turn it in. You won't be done.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's
yeah.
nothing you could do about it. You just got to tough it out. And if you're single in the barracks, that's good for you, because
Yep.
you get home quick. But the ones that are married, They have to
man.
drive typically off post another hour to get to their home. So depending on your situation, it can be a challenge. But on the flip side, you think about, wow, I'm in this, you're having an experience that nobody else is going to have, right? There's not many jobs where you go wake up and say, hey, we're going to go to the range. Let's go get our M16s and go shoot M16s all day or throw grenades, like stuff like that is pretty badass. And not everyone gets to experience that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that, it is, a lot of, probably our civilian counterparts, they say, "Why are you guys so tight?" and all that stuff. You gotta think about it as a soldier, sailor, airman, marine, get placed in a random place with a whole bunch of random people, and guess what? When I wake up, I see him to my left and right. I go eat. We break bread every morning. We go work. We go train. We go do this. And then by the end of the day, we don't just clock out and be like, all right, see you tomorrow. No, I'm going to walk back, go break bread with him again for dinner.
Yeah.
Go ahead and relax, chill in the barracks. And these are the same people that I saw today get smoked by their NCO. And we're just talking to
Yeah.
each other to vent about those kind of things, you know? So we're with each other from day one all the way to the time either we PCS, where we leave the base to go to the next one, or we, ETS, where we exit out the military. So it's just one of those things that it's your coworker, but we've experienced everything every single day together, right?
Yeah. And that's what they call him your battle buddy, right? That's kind of where you learn it from. But as you get to your first duty station, you might be there with somebody that you started in basic training with. And when you get to your duty station, you might only have one or two or a handful of people that you really know that you've known for like the last 6 months. So when you get to that duty station, that's like the main person you're going to hang out with. Hey, let's meet up here. If they're in the same barracks as you, then you're going to link up with them and hang out. And that's
Yes.
like your best friend, and they're going to remain your best friend for a long time. And then if you deploy with them, that just makes the bond even stronger. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, that's why some people are so tight because you don't go through those experiences like that with many people. So the ones you meet along the way, it's a different kind of friendship.
Yeah. 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 Because, I bet you right now, you don't even know what your coworkers are doing right now, or you don't even care what they do in the morning or whatever when they, as long as they show up to work the next day, right?
Yeah.
That's probably one of the things that you got to understand, is that, the leadership and culture within military is that, yes, I, know my coworkers very well, right? But I don't know them at a personal level like I would my battle buddy in the army, because again, as a soldier, we're watching over each other every single day, even on the weekends. It, no matter what, we're trying to prevent each other from getting in trouble when we're out in town, or cover each other because I'm out of some cash and he's spotting me or whatnot, right? Those kind of things that you have to understand, is that the leadership culture in the military is quite different.
Well, I want to touch on a few things since we're on this topic, first duty stations. And one question that some people might ask is, how does sick call work? If I don't feel good in the morning, can I just sleep in? Or can I just miss formation? What happens, Jackson? What happens if I'm a new soldier and I don't feel good? I don't want to go to formation. What's going to happen to me?
So, you can't use your PTO. We ain't got no PTO.
I can't just send an email and say I'm not feeling well.
No, 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 you can't do that. So every morning when you go to your first formation, That's why you get there at 06 in the morning when first formation is at 06:30, is because you got to check in with your NCO. And if you're feeling a little bad, like, oh, my tummy hurts or whatever, you can go to the battalion aid station to get checked out by the medics to see what they determine if it's, severe or not. So if they say, hey, there's nothing wrong with you, you go back to formation, or they'll give you, depending on what it is, they'll probably say, hey, you probably need to go get this checked out more. Here's a referral to go to the hospital, right? They'll move you up little bit. Well, you know, in the civilian world, you don't have to show uh, your medical forms like, hey, this is my doctor says, for certain things. Now, for us, for the military, oh, let me see that note. What does it say? Right?
Yeah, you got to produce that. You got to produce it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
it's
So
funny you say that because you got to show up to that first formation, and it's kind of like a peer pressure thing, right? Because like, oh man, because if you don't show up, that's like the first mistake you made. Because now you're not there, and your sergeant's gonna come looking for you, or your corporal's gonna come looking for you. And okay, so you make it past that step. Okay, then you're told to go see this medic, and you gotta explain to them why your leg hurts, and they say no, here, just take some aspirin and go back. Now it's like, man, so if you're trying to get out of something, it's very hard, unless you're really trying to fake it. But if you do it enough times, that's what we start to call, at least where I was at in 10th Mountain, I was a sick call ranger. You start getting the reputation
yeah,
of um, the sick call ranger, where you're always going to sick call, and never mind the the battalion runs. The once a month that I think Ted Mao we did like a battalion or a division run where everybody goes, and there's always people
yeah,
that it was, and I never forget it because I want to talk about one of the times we did that. I think it was maybe a battalion run, and one one of the one of the guys who start running, and right away he's like, "Oh, my stomach! I gotta fall out." He did this every time where he just he fell out and he never came back. And it was kind of funny because people learn how to get out of it.
goodness, it was. I hated. Well, I don't know how it was for you for PT schedules, but every Monday we would do we would do like a short distance run, about 4 to 5 miles, right? In formation as a company. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we would do like platoon level PT, right? Sprints, upper body, lower body, and stuff like that. And then Fridays we would do a company long run. My God, those killed me because our first sergeant would like, hey, before you go out there and get messed up, I'm gonna make sure you guys sweat it out first. My God, it was rough because it was our long runs, usually about 7 8 miles, and I
And
was
it's pretty
dying.
it's pretty cool when you think about it because they shut the roads down, and you got all these people running in formation. And us being 10th Mountain, we wouldn't always stay on the paved road. We would go down these trails and stuff because that's kind of what 10th Mountain's all about, right? It's traditionally light infantry on this terrain. So the expectation was you're not running on pavement. You're in the wilderness. You're going up and down these hills and through creeks and stuff. So they would take you through a creek, and it got kind of muddy and kind of deep, and people they couldn't pull their feet out, and the shoes were coming
Yeah,
off, and they would lose a shoe and had to keep running. So
yeah,
it was funny doing those kinds of things.
yeah. I do not. I did not like that when we go off the trail. I'm like, man, I just bought these shoes. Or man, I was like, these shoes just dried this last night, and I'm gonna have to get into it again. I'm like, oh my.
It's so
So
funny.
it was just, it does suck, and but that was the thing, we always had to be prepared to go do what we needed to do. But I think it was a great experience. It kept us. I guess it kept me mindful of being fit even till now. even shoot, I'm out the army. I still kind of PT a little bit on my own so that I can at least stay kind of fit, right? But not like fit like I was back when back when we were privates, right? So,
Yeah.
but I mean, overall, I think when soldiers, when they first get there, everybody has a different experience, but we're just sharing our experience. And we hope that we kind of connected on this.
Let's continue on and start to wrap up this episode of First Duty Station Experiences. Let me just do a short recap on what we covered. And of course, when Jackson and I start to talk about our experiences, brings up a lot of funny memories and experiences. And to be honest, that's what this is all about, right? Hopefully,
Yeah.
we're engaging with other veterans. We're getting their input and feedback on their experience. So we talked about in processing the paperwork, being new, meeting new soldiers and leaders, the living situation, right, with the barracks, the experience in the barracks, restrictions and room inspections. And then we talked about the work life, right? Early morning PTs, what to expect on a traditional work day, sick leave, different responsibilities like the day-to-day work at your duty station. And, we mentioned some field exercises. So those are just some quick tidbits on your first duty station. Of course, we won't have time to talk about all of it
Yeah.
in one episode, but tune in for more episodes. We're going to keep going.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of topics to be covered. Again, we want to, uh, keep it under a certain amount of time. So I think we will definitely uh, take the whole time again discussing more of the topics on our next episode, on our part 2 of First Duty Station.
Yeah, and we got the whole episodes, of course, but we do have the shorts. So if you don't have an entire hour to dedicate to watch this, check out the shorts. They're about around 1 minute each, and they're in different segments, so you could get quick little bits of information maybe you're really looking for certain topics to cover. So the shorts are a great place to look. Otherwise, stay tuned for episode 6, where Jackson and I will continue on our journey in the military, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you.
See you, everybody,
All
on the
right.
next episode.
Take care.